and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1441B, and today's date is December 6th, 2017, and the title of the episode is the Middle East ready to explode, or is there something else happening? Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Jim Willey. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview, or you can come over to the X22report.com site or the newssentinel.com site. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video on the site. You can play it right on the site. Or go to Steemit. That's steemit.com. /at X22 Report. The interview is right there. You can play it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like Al Greene, he is moving forward with the vote to impeach Trump. Now, 58 House Democrats voted to impeach Trump, and the vote has failed. And we can see right now that this was never going to happen. There are no grounds for impeachment, and this whole thing, it just didn't work. In a 364 to 58 vote, lawmakers tabled the impeachment resolution from Greene, and we can see right now this is done here. Now, we know the corporate media is making a very big deal about Flynn speaking to the Russians, and of course, this isn't what he was brought up on charges about. He was brought up on charges about lying because, as we said before, other individuals who are coming into the White House, where they were just elected and they're part of administration, they needed to speak to diplomats in different countries. And we see right now, there are many individuals coming out saying, yeah, this is absolutely normal. Jack Matlock, the four-year U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union from 1987 to 1991, at the time that the USSR fell, writes the following. As one who spent a 35-year diplomatic career working to open up the Soviet Union and to make communication between our diplomats and ordinary citizens a normal practice, I find the attitude of much of our political establishment and some of our once respected media outlets quite incomprehensible. What in the world is wrong with consulting a foreign embassy about ways to improve relations? Anyone who aspires to advise an American president should just do that. Michael McFaul, the U.S. ambassador to Russia under President Obama, also confirms that the Russian ambassador's contacts with the U.S. officials under an incoming administration are not unusual. It is normal for presidential candidates to insert themselves into global events by dialing up heads of state. In fact, Obama did pretty much the same thing multiple times, no less as a candidate during the 2008 campaign. Obama, like Romney, embarked on a foreign trip as a candidate, meeting face-to-face with leaders such as Afghan President Hamid Karzai, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki, and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. And we can see right now, this isn't the problem. This isn't Russian collusion. This is why they couldn't bring Flynn up on these charges, because there's nothing there. Now, what's very interesting is that the FBI agent that was suspended or demoted, where they're out there saying that he was texting anti-Trump messages, which is ridiculous. That's not why he was removed, because most of the FBI who are working for Mueller are anti-Trump. So let's just get that out of the way. We know that he leaked stuff to the corporate media. We also come to find out that he did something else. He changed the wording in former FBI Director James Comey's memo that cleared Hillary Clinton of mishandling classified information. And as more information comes out, we're finding out that he was involved in a lot of different things that he shouldn't have been doing. We also come to find out that the NSA's McMaster, he authorized surveillance of Bannon and the Trump family. And we see right now there's a former CIA paramilitary officer and a member of the Trump transition team, John R. McGuire. He revealed during a fundraising meeting for an intelligence gathering operation in Afghanistan that National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster authorized surveillance of Steve Bannon and Trump family members, including Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. And we see right now that all these individuals, they were spying on Trump and his administration. And yes, they had no warrant. They were unmasking individuals. And we see that all this information is coming out now. And as we move forward, we're going to find out a lot more. And again, they're trying to keep their power. They don't want to give their power up. And this is why they were trying to get whatever they possibly could on Trump, on his sons, on anyone. But they couldn't find anything. If they had it, it would have been all over the place. Everyone would have been brought up on charges already. And this is why Mueller, he can't find anything. This is why he had to come up with lying. That's all he has. We see the U.S. B-1B bomber is flying over the Greene peninsula. Now remember, they're having this huge drill there. The B-1B Lancer strategic bomber and the F-22 Raptor stealth fighter jets. They are having this drill with South Korea. They're maneuvering all around North Korea, trying to provoke North Korea. And we see at this point that, again, North Korea is not going to do anything. They're not going to budge, and nothing's going to happen. This is all about the cabal trying to push North Korea over the edge, and it will not happen. They're instructed not to do anything. Now, something big happened in the Middle East. We understand that the war is lost in Syria. The cabal has nothing left there. They're losing Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, and they're in trouble. And today, and this was reported a couple days ago, where Trump was going to come out and say that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel. And back in 1995, Congress passed the Jerusalem Embassy Act, requiring the movement of the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and the act said that Jerusalem should be undivided and be recognized as the capital of Israel. The legislation passed 53-5 in the Senate and 374-37 in the House of Representatives. Now, once again, there are many countries out there saying that this is not a good thing. I personally don't believe that this is a good thing. There are many countries that are involved in Jerusalem. And we see right now that Israel right now is bracing for demonstrations in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Other countries are out there saying that they're going to protest all of this. And we're starting to hear from Turkey. We're starting to hear from the Council of the League of Arab States, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Syria, Russia, China, and all of them are saying that this is not a good thing. Now, before Trump went ahead and did this, he spoke to many different leaders. Now, of course, many presidents before him did not go ahead and say, okay, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. We'll be moving the embassy. But he's not moving the embassy just yet. And we need to look closely at this to see why this is happening. Now, this could spark something big in the Middle East. Maybe this was the plan. Maybe this is what they wanted to happen. Maybe this is the event where these countries go off the edge, something happens, and war breaks out. Or maybe something else was done here. Maybe there was a deal that was struck with Israel. Because think about it. Syria is lost. Libya is lost. Lebanon is lost. And there's no way they're going to be starting a war with Iran. It's not going to happen. We know that Israel and the coalition forces, they funded the Islamic State. They supported them. And we understand that they also supported the moderate rebels. Was this done? Was this a deal that they made where they said, listen, we'll say Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, hands off of the Middle East, no more wars. Because as we can see, Syria is lost. There's nothing they can do right now. Now, the other side of this is that Israel, well, they own Trump. And they're telling Trump, this is what we want. But from Trump's actions in the past, it doesn't seem like this. And I know that there are leaders out there that are not happy with this. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. Now, Trump might be controlled by Israel. Don't get me wrong here. Where he's bought and paid for. And this was already pre-done way before. Or this was a plan to stop what was happening in the Middle East, because there's nothing else the cabal that they can do out in the Middle East unless they have some type of an event. Was this done to stop the event in the Middle East? Because we see Trump right now, he's telling Saudi Arabia to stop the blockade into Yemen, allow humanitarian aid to reach the people of Yemen. We see right now that Syria is saying that they're fully liberated from the Islamic State group. Yes, there's still very tiny pockets, but Syria controls the country right now. Not the Islamic State, not the moderate rebels, not the Syrian Democratic Forces, not the Kurds. And the United States must leave. I know there's no news reports out there saying that the U.S. is never leaving, but that's ridiculous. Under international law, and with Russia, with China, with Syria, and the rest of the country saying, okay, there's no reason for you to be in here, because if they stay there, it's an invading force, because Assad is an elected leader. Assad is a leader of a sovereign country, and the United States was not invited in this country, and now they have absolutely no reason to be there. So we can see that things are winding down, and the cabal, they have nothing left. So we're going to have to see how this all plays out in the Middle East, because this was just not done just to do it. There's always something in the background that we're not seeing. And from what I'm seeing, it looks like there were deals that were put into place to stop what was going on in the Middle East. And you remember, this law has been on the books since 95, and those who were in power used it to, maneuver and to control and to say, listen, we'll help you with this. We'll make Jerusalem the capital. And then they never did. And then the next president came in. They did the same exact thing because they needed that little control to keep Israel in line, or whatever they needed Israel to do. And I know a lot of people think that, oh no, they're completely controlled, but it goes both ways. And we see right now that this might have been the point in time where they said, okay, we need to bring this to an end, and we need to make agreements here. And this is why it was done. Now, time will tell. Maybe the Middle East will break out in war. Maybe the countries of Iran, maybe the countries of Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, and the rest, maybe they don't agree with this and they start a war. Or maybe Israel goes in and attacks Gaza. We'll have to wait and see. But I think there was a deal made in the background to pull troops away, stop going into Syria, stop firing missiles into Syria. There'll be no war with Iran. You're not going to use Lebanon as a proxy to get into war, and I believe this is what's happening right now. And we see at this point that everything that we're looking at right now is the destruction of the cabal, where they have lost the Middle East completely. And we see that Russia and China, they are gaining ground in the Middle East, and everything is changing at this point. And when we look at the economic situation, when we look at the geopolitical situation, we see there's many, many changes in the wind here. We see that the United States cannot survive on its own economically. I mean, you just can't create currency and create currency and create currency and have no trade, have no manufacturing, and people keep losing jobs where you can't even purchase things from stores because we can see the toll it's taking on the country. Retail is apocalyptic. Manufacturing is apocalyptic. And all of it is completely accelerating to the downside. And eventually what happens is you go bankrupt. This is what happens to corporations. I mean, the country is really no different. You can borrow and borrow and borrow and create currency, give yourself more and more debt. Eventually what happens, there's a breaking point. And this is where we're headed. Yes, they can run the debt level up to 90 trillion, but who's going to believe that the U.S. is ever going to be able to pay all this back? How are they going to pay for the payments, even with zero interest, if everyone is losing a job and the tax receipts coming to the government continually declines? There's always a breaking point. And what they're very nervous about is that we're reaching that breaking point. We're very close to it. And as more people lose jobs and more corporations, lose revenue and profits and retail closes down and everything falls apart, we'll be right there. Because think about it. A couple of years ago, we said retail is going to fall apart. And look what happened. We said it's not because of the weather. It was because people were losing jobs. The same thing's going to happen with corporations. That's next, where they're going to say, listen, we can't survive anymore. We bought back our stock. We manipulated our earnings. We just don't have the revenue and profit. We have to keep closing and laying off people. And when the tax receipts continually drop, even if people get part-time jobs, they're going to go from that full-time job to one or two part-time jobs. The taxes coming into the government are much less. And those people who aren't working, well, the taxes are even much less than that. So we see that we're headed to this point where there's nothing left here. And everything has been moved already over to the east. It's moved from the west to the east, and we can see that they're ready to bring this online. They're just trying to figure it out on how they're going to explain this to the world, because the central banks don't want to be blamed for all of this. Because if they are blamed, guess what? They can't restart the system. They can't reset it. And this is why they've been pushing for this war, this event. They're trying to get something to happen. And actually, it'd be better if the system came down without a war or an event and everyone pointed the finger at the central bank and said, you know something? We don't need the central bank. There's no reason for them. Look what they've done to the world. They destroyed it with debt and their economic policies. It doesn't work. It was never meant to be this way. The people were supposed to create their own currency with no interest attached. We weren't supposed to borrow it. Everything was supposed to balance out. And by having government with an open, credit card, that leads to corruption. That leads to greed. That leads to, you know what? Who cares if this money goes missing? Who cares if anyone finds out? I'm making a lot of money. And you know what? We'll just keep borrowing. Who cares? But if you had checks and balances, you can't do that. And the central banks, they're the root of all of the problems here. Everything leads back to them. They don't want you to know that, but it does. It leads all back to the central bank. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.